You have to create that culture internally, and you have to make sure that you're nurturing these people, because the hardest thing to deal with is brain drain, or when people leave and you have to find new resources and ramp people up. They have no idea how much energy that actually takes. Motivation is super important.
Hello everyone, I'm Auxe from Ideanote. Today we are here at the Talent Garden and we're talking to Taylor Ryan. Taylor is a keynote speaker, a startup junkie, and probably the best growth hacker in Denmark. He doesn't sugarcoat things and is always extremely focused on bringing value to his audience. In our talk today, we are talking about things like why internal innovation may not be the answer you're looking for, or why you should bring radical thinkers inside your group. Also, at the end of the talk, he will give you 3 tips on what your team can do today to improve your innovation management. Stay tuned.
My name is Taylor Ryan. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I've been in the startup scene for going on 12 years. I've actually co-founded 6 different startups, and I consider myself a bit of a startup junkie, growth hacker, mentor, and I've worked in a ton of different sectors and industries, everything from hardware all the way up through mobile app development, more recently a lot of innovation consulting and pairing startups with corporations, and also a growth hacking agency mixed with trying to disrupt a giant industry that's the architecture scene. So lots of projects, lots of fun. So in terms of a one-size-fits-all approach, there's never going to be that across all the different industries and sectors. Every single problem is going to be different and requires a unique solution. For instance, fintech, right? The idea of these banks trying to find different ways to change their old business model. If you go into the bank, you give the teller your cash, it goes into the vault, hopefully, and then eventually it appears in your account. Or you go up to a machine and it's called an automatic teller machine, an ATM, and you punch in a few numbers, get your cash out. Those are the biggest innovations that they've had in the last 50 years. So a lot of banks aren't investing super heavily on anything in the way of blockchain because it's scary to them and they're afraid it's going to put them out of business. The biggest innovations over the last 5 to 10 years are like, hey, let's put a coffee shop inside of our bank so people can hang out and have coffee. It's like, nobody wants to hang out in your bank, dude. You have to provide better services. You have to give a shit. And the problem is not a lot of banks are really looking at this as a long-term strategy. They're looking for what the short-term fixes are that don't require a lot of investment because they're scared of things they don't understand. What is going to happen is a lot of small, really agile startups are going to start inserting them in places and going, cool, remember where you had to pay all this money in interest in order to take out a mortgage? You don't have to do that anymore, we got you. And then all of a sudden you're looking at an entire business model that used to be their bread and butter in terms of banks is gone. And that's happening across every industry. And the idea is that it takes sometimes these radical projects, radical thinkers to insert the idea and go, you know what, this is our thing, we're gonna do this. And a lot of these large companies don't either have the passion, the desire to try to do something that's so bizarre and drastic and obviously not initially accepted, and you're going to see them fail, and that sucks. But the reality is that's progress, and you can't fight what's coming for you. In terms of the way that companies should innovate, of course, innovate for now, but also in the future. So I've taught in a lot of different places in terms of the way that you can think of growth hacking. What I do is it's never going to make sense to do a one-for-one approach. So if I have to send an email out to customers, I'm not sending out one email to every individual customer. I'm going to automate that process, put it in a sequence, and make sure to send it instead of a 1-for-1, it's a 1 to 1,000, 1 for 50,000. That way I'm saving time. You can do this across every department in every company in every industry. So those are immediate things that you can change. In terms of what could happen in the future, I see it all the time. So like e-commerce platforms that are having difficulty making real money or making sense of their affiliate programs. The idea is that, there's not too many payment gateways that allow affiliates to get an immediate commission upon every sale. So what if, let's say a company like Stripe gives you the chance to have 2 people take payments at once, meaning every affiliate gets immediate money. That's something that literally just happened, and it will revolutionize the way that people actually play the affiliate game and e-commerce. And that's just one example. The idea is that you never go to where the puck currently is. This is a hockey reference, but you're not going to where the puck currently is. You're going to where it's supposed to be. You don't have the ability to try to plan everything for the future, but at the same time, make the decisions that are going to put you in a better place tomorrow, next year, next 5 years from now. It's just crazy that people don't think that way, but sometimes we put the blinders on and it doesn't make sense. In terms of managing innovation, there's so many different techniques, and this is what fills up libraries, right? All of these turn into New York best time sellers or New York best sellers. I almost got there. The idea is really simple, that a lot of people talk about these things in theoretical kind of forms, essentially saying, you gotta come up with ideas and then put the ideas to action. It's like, well, no shit, dude. I get that. But I think if you start looking at the questions that you need to ask in a more critical way, you can start to tease out some of the most important learnings. So for instance, one of, I can't remember the guy's name, he's a fantastic book writer and consultant, but I wanna use his case. So he goes into large companies and hits individual departments and asks the workers and individual teams one very simple question, which is, what is stopping you from doing your best life's work at this company today? The idea is that psychologically is not supposed to tease out, well, my boss is a dick, and no. I'm asking you what's stopping you individually from doing amazing things here with us. And I think what you end up getting is a far more positive response that gives you answers and options to be able to actually execute things on. So that's one way of asking the right questions to get to kind of the narrow focus of what you need to do. In terms of the way that you might want to manage these things, I always look at it in terms of internal and external innovation. So let's say we want to innovate internally. We bring in a consultant and they say, cool, we're going to bring startups to pair with current teams. That never works, ever. So think of like the analogy of, let's say the fastest animal on land is the cheetah, right? You throw the cheetah in the ocean and say, okay, do what you do on land and we'll see you in 6 months. It doesn't work. It's the same thing with the ocean, right? You have the sailfish, fastest animal in the sea. Essentially, you throw that thing on land, it's the same deal. There's a reason that startups aren't working in large corporations. It's because there's a big culture difference. And it's some of the most nuanced things in terms of, I don't want to dress like those guys. And I don't see why I have to be here at 9 and punch out at 5 when I know I'm still working 12 hours when I roll in at 11:30 and you see me leave the office at 10:45 at night. That's the way I work. It's a completely different environment, and it's oil and water, they never mix. In terms of external innovation, I know I'm bouncing around, but external innovation is super fascinating, and I think a lot of large companies are drifting towards this. The idea of having a corporate garage or an innovation lab. The concept is almost operating like you're basically a corporate VC. You're bringing in a bunch of chance and opportune kind of focused startups that have a vision and saying, cool, I'm gonna give you resources, I'm gonna give you time, dance, like show me something cool. But you're gonna have to also come into this knowing you can't set the critical milestones on these guys the same way you would inside of large departments. But what you do get out of this is the ability to influence and say, look, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to change your model, continue to run. You can't do that inside of large organizations because we've already had meetings for the sake of meetings. And well, we agreed on the last one where 50 people sat in a room and nodded their head because they agreed with me because I'm the boss that we were gonna go this way. And you have 2 years of development work later and it turns out this whole project was a bust. Whereas startups are agile and they got into it for the right reasons and they're willing to follow every step in order to see their dream come true. Totally different ways of thinking, internal versus external. External is always going to work, and there are a few players that are doing it really well. Is there going to be hope for the corporates, large companies in the future? The short answer is a lot of them no. And that's unfortunate, but it's also what needs to happen. This is progress. The idea is that a lot of these companies get fat, they get slow, they stop doing the things that they did at the beginning in order to be innovative and be a market leader, they're doing the right things for too long. And what they might end up doing and getting a little more bang out of their buck for is working with startups, because startups have something they don't, which is the give a shit factor or passion. So think of it like this. If I'm trying to solve, let's say, a fintech problem where I'm trying to do fraud detection inside of my large bank, and let's just say I'm Danske Bank, because they've had some troubles with that. So the idea is really simple. They want to put a team inside of Danske Bank on this project. These are people that look at it like a job. This is any other job that I've been assigned a task and I'm going to work 9 to 5 and I'll do it. Versus if you work with a fraud detection fintech company that's into blockchain, and they got into it because they want to disrupt the entire financial sector. They want to play with the big boys, and they have this chip on their shoulder that I'm the underdog, you can't get in my way. They have passion, right, and grit. And I guarantee you, with these two different types of teams competing against one another, I guarantee you the passionate team is always going to win, because they give a shit. They don't look at it like just another paycheck. They started this for the right reasons, and they want to see it through. And you cannot duplicate that. You can't pack into pill form, get up and go, or drive. It doesn't exist. And so I think inspiration is very difficult to find in these large structures, but it can come from working with these small companies. And there's a million different examples of that. First tip for kind of maintaining something in the way of innovative thinking is, and not everybody loves this one, but killing projects or creating a stop doing list. If this isn't working and hasn't worked for months, if not years, and it's bringing zero value, stop doing it. Right? I have to do this consistently on marketing, where we're putting out articles on Medium, or we're doing pulse articles on LinkedIn. Zero organic traffic, zero conversions, nothing in the way of engagement. And we've been doing it for 3 or 4 months and nothing has changed. It's a long enough time for me to get the impression that this ain't working. So quit doing it. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to create a stop doing list. So that's number one. Number two is don't hire people that are just like you. I can't tell you how difficult it is. I feel like salespeople do this a lot, where they're like, hey, he's like me, he almost looks like me. And it never works out. It's just this crazy thing. You have to bring in sometimes radical outsiders to change the perspective. There's this great example of John Crowley. John Crowley was basically a guy that spent 20 years in the finance sector, and his daughter was born with a genetic disability that was essentially it was a neurogenic disease, so she was going to die in a matter of years. So he quit his job in finance and started a bio company, and basically found all the people that were working within the bio industry to solve genetic disorders, brought them into one place, raised capital to keep them working, basically cured the disease within 3 years, and sold off the company within 5 for $135 million. I don't have that money sitting in the bank, but I mean, more power to them. The idea is radical outsiders provide way different solutions than what normally would happen. This is why I do well when I go into agencies. They're like, how did you do this? I'm like, because I'm not like you guys. Like, there's a difference. So yeah, I would say radical outsiders are cool, and it's good to be able to work with that. I do think that the last one is kind of this touchy-feely one, but it's finding motivation. So of course, for innovation, motivation can be everything. It's the difference between staying late, getting work done in order to outlast the competition or beat them at scale very quickly, because the reason that a lot of these people get into the game, especially if they're working with outside startups, is because they got into it because they wanted to solve a massive problem, or they believed in this concept from the beginning. And that's hard to find. Everybody has different motivations. When I was younger, and I think a lot of people are fresh out of school, it's all about money, right? I want to make the most money so I can buy fancy shit, and I want a nice car and vacations and all that stuff. Once you get a little further in your career and you realize, cool, they can pay me a lot of money, but if I'm fucking miserable and I hate my job, I'm not gonna be here very long. So the idea is, maybe the motivation is, I wanna work on cool shit, that's mine. Some people need accolades on a regular basis, meaning, you've done a great job today. I really am inspired by your work. Keep going, great job. Here's a gold star, like some people need that, and that's important. And then the last one is security, right? Knowing that you have this job tomorrow, next month, next year, because you're part of a team, you're part of a family. That last one's really difficult to guarantee these days, but it does mean something to a lot of people. So finding what it is that inspires or keeps people motivated is super difficult because you actually have to talk to them like human beings. And it's difficult to do that on a one-on-one level if you're a director of a department that has 250 people, but that's your fucking job, right? Like if you're not doing that, then what is it that you're actually up to? I don't fully understand. So you have to create that culture internally, and you have to make sure that you're nurturing these people, because the hardest thing to deal with is brain drain, or when people leave and you have to find new resources and ramp people up. They have no idea how much energy that actually takes. Motivation is super important. There's only 2 Taylors in Denmark, Taylor Ryans in Denmark. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Taylor Ryan. I'm running a growth hacking agency where I'm putting tech stacks together and basically optimizing processes for companies. So it's a mixture of a consultancy to get the right tools in place and then a development firm that's basically implementing them. So that's klintmarketing.com, and I'm looking for a few more clients, so I'm always down to work with people. And I also have another startup that I've been scaling for the last year and 6-7 months. It's called Architecture Quotes, and I'm basically trying to disrupt the way that architects find leads and bring basically lead aggregation into a very old school industry. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Taylor Ryan. Look me up, Klint Marketing, Klint marketing.com, and architecturequote.com. Yeah, I connect with everybody, so.